introducing our special guest today, VjDeliria. What's up?
Hi, how are you? Thank you so much for the invitation. I'm looking at your Twitch stream, and I recommend if you guys are not watching the stream, I think that you get the most out of these Twitter spaces when the host is doing some type of stream, and you can also see it. So that I feel like that's a really good strategy. I also do spaces, and I Twitch at the same time, and sometimes that's really helpful when I'm talking about other projects and stuff like that. But yes, my name is Alba. I go by VjDeliria in the space. I'm an audiovisual artist, and I also have been trying to build community projects within the Spanish-speaking, NFT world. But yeah, I'm so happy to be here. Thank you so much again for this opportunity. There's a lot of things happening next month. It's crazy. It's wild. It's going to be fun.
Next week. So remember how many people were there last time when we met?
Yeah, it's going to be major.
I've seen the head count. It's at least twice as big as that. It's ridiculous.
It's great. I feel like it's really turning New York the mecca for the NFTs at this point.
VjDeliria is also, we did one drop together. So this is my first set of NFT drops. So that's, she made this story about my daughter, about her dreams. Look at my daughter dreams about shapes and colors. Deliria got them in there. It's great. So we've worked together. We've published together, and it's still for sale. I met her at NFT NYC. She's creative. She's more than just being creative. What does creative mean? Do you create things in your dreams? Are you a creator because you imagine? No, you're a creator because you do things. Real artists ship, right? And that's why I like working with VjDeliria. I'm so excited to bring her as a co-host here.
Yeah, thanks. Nice to meet you, Deliria. I'm Dan. I have a quick question, just because I don't speak much Spanish, so I don't know what you said. You mentioned the Spanish-speaking NFT community. What that community is like from your experience, how it differs from the English-speaking NFT community.
That's a great question. Thank you for asking. From my journey, my perspective, I began knowing and learning about the NFT space through the English-speaking communities in Clubhouse last year, and I think that's what most of us at the beginning of last year, the Spanish-speaking community in Clubhouse started, and then later on, at the end of last year, I feel like the whole NFT ecosystem moved from Clubhouse to Twitter spaces. And when that happened, that was another wave of e-commerce and new artists were coming into the space through the Twitter spaces avenues. The Spanish-speaking community, for me, from my perspective, we started building communities since last year. I had two clubhouses. One of them was focused on finances and legalities around NFTs, and then the other one was mostly about an NFT artist collective. We established a team and a deadline, and we all minted together, and then went through that whole marketing. We onboarded more artists. Towards the end of 2021, last year, the music NFT Spanish community began, and this year there's a couple of projects that are focused mostly about on music by Ibero-American artists, and this refers to everyone that speaks Spanish around the world. Because the reason why it hasn't exploded as much or it hasn't developed as fast is also the access of the technology in developing countries. I think that having access to a good internet signal and having access to electricity and having access to the technology itself is not as easy in many countries. And that's another reason why we started the collective, because through this collective, new artists that wanted to be part of the NFT scene, but did not have the means to get crypto, we would transfer them money for them to start minting their first pieces, their first NFT So I think that part of what our community's challenges is spreading this technology to more people.
That's also the opportunities, a huge opportunity for crypto in general. The largest players are all focused on this, all of them. One very big use case for everything crypto is finance. There's an opportunity in LATAM to improve financial inclusion. Unbanked people, there's a lot. Also, there's a lot of volatility in finance. The money, some of the currencies are not so good, like Argentina. I was in Argentina 2 years ago. There's a serious currency problem there. And so there's a big opportunity for crypto in general.
William, just a quick question.
Yeah.
You said you were talking with Avalanche about negotiating. Can you talk more about what you guys were talking about?
Yeah, so my client was Bank. So this is a former client of mine, so I'll show you one of their products.
I believe also what William was sharing on Twitch was some articles about the Quintana Roo state's government in Mexico. What happened is that there was a lot of people falsifying and changing the results of the COVID tests. So they used the blockchain to authenticate the COVID results, and they are using the Avalanche blockchain to do this. And Avalanche has a really nice grip on Latin America. They work with the governments. They work with also sports team, like soccer teams, and that's major in Latin America as well. Yeah, I feel like Avalanche is definitely tapping into that market.
Yeah, I'm assuming everybody's watching the Twitch. If you're not, thank you for the narration. If you scroll up in this spaces, you can see a link to the Twitch and you can see my screen. So this is simulcast. So this the story is, I'm pulling it up on my screen. The gentleman just asked a question about Avalanche, so I'll get to that. My previous client was Bank, and we delivered this product called blockchain certificates for COVID, for other lab tests. And this is the one with Avalanche, with Quintana Roo, and in the airports. That's live. Now, I do consulting, I do advisory, and so a lot of the projects I work on are NFT related, but not artwork. So they are platforms, carbon marketplaces, tracking wine, stamps, Microsoft, Xbox uses NFTs, if you don't know about that. These are the type of applications I work on. And so if I'm working with a big client, somebody that's working with Microsoft, we're not doing any fundraising. If I'm working with a smaller client, like somebody who's trying to do NFT COVID test results, they are fundraising. And so one of the classic strategies, if you're in my position working on enterprise projects, is you directly call the biggest players in blockchain. So you would just call Avalanche, or you would call Algorand or Tron or any of them. And that's what I did. So we had our phone calls about this. And so all of them have funding for this type of thing that I'm talking about. And what you do is if you're doing a good job, if I'm doing a good job as an advisor, then I want to bring the best deal to my client and then make these things happen, right? So I've been on several calls with Algorand, and they have funding and they have, the initiative to go into LATAM. My understanding is that Colombia has been their focus, and ultimately there's an offer on the table. It didn't close, which is fine, but I have visibility into how they, make decisions, how they, would you engage with Algorand? And it was a good experience. I mean, they were very fast to get a lot of people on the phone. I mean, they were bringing high-level people on the phone quickly to make deals happen. And so there's the Algorand Foundation. And Algorand has 3 different parts for the decision making. So they have the foundation, they have the company, right, and the community. They're all different things. They're all called Algorand, and unfortunately, it's on Algorand.com, which should really just be Algorand.org. I think that's one of their biggest mistakes. But yeah, they're very focused on LATAM, and I don't know how much has come out in the past 6 months since I last spoke to them, but or 4 months. But
Can I ask you a question about that?
Please.
Yeah, so I think another thing that's kind of interesting is we're finding a lot of blockchains that they'll have a foundation and then they'll have a for-profit corporation. Should people trust a blockchain that has a for-profit engine behind it? What do you think about that?
I think this is a super important question. I'm glad you're asking. You can't have an organization without money, and you can't have a blockchain ecosystem without development. And you can't have anything on earth without leadership. Things don't get built that are good without leadership. So there's got to be some foundation for building. Now, Bitcoin has no foundation, but then the answer to that is Bitcoin's done building. There's no version 2. It worked perfectly and it's over. aside from the fact that they're proof of work. But otherwise, Bitcoin is done. There's no version 2, there's no upgrades, there's no merges, right? So there's no need for money. Well, what should you do? Algorand has a corporation, they have a community. Can we trust them?
I think maybe a better example would be like Python or like programming languages. I'm curious to see like what do you think the Wikipedia model, programming languages model, what do you think? A good example to kind of follow.
For Wikipedia model, we're talking about every month or every year, you get pop-ups and they ask you for $5 and then they tell you about how $5 is going to change the world.
I was going to say that too. I feel like Wikipedia, like they're constantly begging for money, which I think is like a sign that good things not working because you're relying on altruism. So then what is a better example? Like I'm thinking maybe like Python or like these programming languages, they seem to be having a better model.
Okay, so let's look at a few models and then let's bring Deliria in because this is a technical question that involves all stakeholders. So really it's not a technical question. But let's just review a few models here. One of them, let's look at Swift. Okay, Swift is related to Rust, is related to C. It's kind of like between C and Rust. Swift is an amazing programming language, entirely sponsored by Apple. Apple sponsors it, they put all the money in, but it's a community project. So they have a listserv and some of the decision-making can be voted on by people outside. Let's look at PHP. PHP is a straight vote. So they got core developers, so they have a process, you can vote. Python is similar to that. Python has core contributors and it has commercial contributors, and they have votes, and then the votes are public. That's how Python works. Go is a completely Google project. They haven't really let go of that. But at least those are clear. Like it's clear that Apple basically has at least majority control over Swift. And Swift has done amazing things. We're getting to the point where some of these other projects like Linux, like Python, like Ruby, there's so many things that depend on it that the corporations have to donate. Actually, Apache runs like the world. You would have more effect from a bug in Apache than you would from Russia launching cyber-nuclear warfare. How do we fund them? Wikipedia, they just ask for donations. But a lot of people fund Wikipedia. Schools fund Wikipedia. Where does the money go? So that's another thing. Wikipedia has an organizational control structure. They have somebody who pays the bills. Here's another reason. Ethereum doesn't touch the customer. When you use Wikipedia, you know that Wikipedia is open licensed, right? So CC0. That means when you publish something on Wikipedia, it can show up anywhere. Anybody can copy paste it for free. But most people use wikipedia.org. When something goes on Ethereum blockchain, how do you know about it? Open question. How do you know something's on Ethereum?
Isn't it on Etherscan?
It's on Etherscan. It's on MetaMask. It's on Trust Wallet. Ethereum Foundation doesn't control MetaMask, doesn't control Etherscan. So if Ethereum was going to do a fundraiser, literally nobody would see the fundraiser. Nobody would even know about it unless they begged Etherscan to put the fundraiser on their website. And why would Etherscan do that? Etherscan could run their own fundraiser for themselves. Likewise for MetaMask. MetaMask barely supports ERC 721. Why would they support collecting money for Ethereum Foundation? MetaMask doesn't give back. They don't do anything. You got to own your customer, right? So if Ethereum had their own wallet and they had their own OpenSea and they had their own Etherscan ran by Ethereum Foundation, then yes, they could be like, please give us $5 because we're going to run out of money. They could do that and it would work. But you can't do that today because it's so fragmented and there's no leadership.
Wasn't there a thing back in the day, the Ethereum Enterprise Alliance, that was supposed to solve that issue where you would have Ethereum working with big corporations and make money that way? All
right, so those are two different things. So I got that on the screen right now. I've got Ethereum Support Program, ESP, and last year they spent $26 million. That's an M. It's nothing. Ethereum Enterprise Alliance, I'm officially a member of that. That is an enterprise organization. Ethereum Foundation is represented in EEA. I'm also, one of my clients was EY, Ernst & Young. They are a member. Microsoft is a member, or is or was. And so these organizations pay money into EEA. EEA sucks. It's too slow. It doesn't produce work. It's just not a productive, fast-moving, useful organization. I mean, they're still working on tokenized standards. Even NIST, from the US government, ran circles around them in classifying types of tokens. They want to do lobbying. There's a lot of big things that they do, but this does not solve the funding problem. A good blockchain should have 1% or 1 basis point of its money available for this type of stuff. Ethereum doesn't. So EEA does not solve that problem. And EEA will not fund projects like a useful wallet or these really impactful projects. They don't support it.
We don't trust no one. I like what you said about there has to be some type of leadership. And this sounds like conversations I've been in before regarding DAOs, regarding this like romantic idea of decentralization and what this actually is, and if this is actually possible. I remember last year I was in Mexico City for it was a blockchain event, and there were some lawyers talking about their perspective of how to integrate blockchain and crypto to their practice. And one of them was saying that this organization, any organization that has a website, even if they claim to be independent or decentralized, whatever organization it is that has a website, someone took care of that, the registration of the website. Someone paid for the domain of the website. Someone is paying for the hosting of the website. It all comes down to the ownership also of these assets. And we can see that from an artistic perspective, from my perspective. Last year, blockchain of Tesos and Hicetnunc, there was this huge thing that happened because the developer that developed Hicetnunc, Rafael, decided to take down the website, the Hicetnunc website, and then there was this response from the community that happened where the artistic community, developer community around Hicetnunc, they came up with their own mirrors of hand. They developed Kaya, they developed, the code was open, so anyone could have just copied the whole website and create their own hand website. And then from there, a DAO was formed, and it was really interesting seeing how the community, sort of took control over that platform that wanted to take away from the community or take away from the space, but it was through these exercises of organizing the community that they actually split and created their own ecosystem. So I don't know, these are really interesting and I feel like philosophical topics of conversation. It's interesting. I don't know if I answered anything.
I just thought of something that maybe would be re-monetized. Curious to get more perspective on this. The Red Hat model. So if I understand correctly, what Red Hat does is Linux or whatever their software is free, open source. They work on that for free. Then they have a consulting thing to do on the side, whereby if you need it, since we wrote this stuff for ourselves, we understand it the best. So instead of maybe another company doing consulting, they can basically hire out smart contract devs, infrastructure consultants to basically help them with the software. So what do people think about where Ethereum Foundation is free, or the current blockchain dev setup is the same thing, but then Ethereum Foundation has a consulting arm that basically does consulting, self-development work that they can get paid for.
That's me. I just don't pay the money back to Ethereum Foundation. So Ethereum does all the work. I make all the money, maybe. There's the consultants like me or whatever that do these projects. Maybe that's an opportunity. Maybe what I should do, if my ambition here is to take over for some reason, then just take the money I'm making and then turn it back into the community. Take the money I'm making from advisory, funnel that back into core devs, pay for that, and then somehow get the Ethereum.org website updated so that I get more leads and I get more business.
So what I'm actually thinking is something like Ethereum Foundation would hire let's say 2 consultants or 2 devs. One dev is working full-time on the Ethereum blockchain. Another dev is basically doing what you're doing, and then Ethereum is paying their salary, and then the consulting revenue is going back to Ethereum Foundation.
What you're saying totally makes sense, and a normal, well thought out organization would do that. I'm telling you not to expect that from Ethereum Foundation. Also, it makes them not neutral, right? So the minute that Ethereum Foundation publishes any project or develops something, what if they make a smart contract and it gets hacked? Let's say Nike needs consulting. They call Ethereum Foundation, and Ethereum Foundation makes a smart contract. They said, oh, this is it. They publish it, and then it gets hacked. And then Nike's going to say, well, there was the DAO. The DAO got hacked, and you guys reversed that transaction and made everything better. Since I bought this consulting directly from Ethereum Foundation, and you are the one that could reverse a transaction, isn't implicitly what you're selling me? Can't I expect that from you?
Can that just be solved with a lower contract?
Yeah, but these are the things. If I didn't say that right there, and somebody signed a contract without thinking of that thought right there, that could be the end of Ethereum. I'm just predicting that it won't happen because understanding they're a very conservative organization. But you and me on a roadshow selling this to Binance, Tron, Avalanche would totally work.
That's actually very interesting.
Deliria, I wanted to hear, please, if you could send us that link to the project you were talking about a second ago.
Not having the Ethereum gas prices as an artist due to and to mint and experiment with what you are minting. Whereas if we are minting in, let's say, Foundation, you know you're going to pay a lot of money on gases. So you double guess yourself. You actually think more deeply about what you're going to mint. It was almost like a cult type of, marketplace. It was very artistic, and it was for artists by artists type of deal. So when the developer, kind of was like fed up with, I guess he had a lot of work and didn't have a lot of help and didn't want to accept any help either, he just decided to take down the whole project. And because, he was the gatekeeper of the website and everything, the infrastructure, he just took it all down. I remember Hicetnunc very dearly. It was like a really cool part of the, history or the ecosystem.
The bust factor on these projects is pretty low, but this will happen. So you want to think about the longevity and the succession planning for all these projects. Switching gears here, we want to look at this on Twitch. Art House. What's good with Art House?
Yeah, that's me.
Cool. Can you tell us about Art House real quick?
Yeah. So basically, it's actually kind of addresses this thing you were talking about. It's like an open source NFT marketplace that I built at a hackathon.
Cool.
And then, I'm kind of working, we're learning to smart contract development stuff. And then, so in that second link is a function I wrote. And basically the function is so when you basically sell an NFT on the marketplace, instead of transferring the funds directly to you, it uses basically this thing called a pull payment strategy. And I was reading about best practices, and it was saying that, and that's actually the page here, so that it's better to do a pull payment versus a push payment. The question I had was that maybe you pull up that code that I sent.
Yeah, let me see which. So you got 3 links here.
Yeah, it should be the second link.
Smart contract review.
Yeah, that's it right there. You just clicked on, and then that function. Basically, so I use the pull payment strategy, and I'm wondering if it's actually needed for this case because someone was saying that because I make an external call on 91356 at the end, we don't actually need to use the pull payment strategy. Someone said I can solve it by security transfer. I want to get your thoughts on that. Got
it. So let's go identify these best practices. I recommend at the bottom of your README file to actually have a section called best practices. Sometimes you hear a best practice and then it inspires your decisions that you make. So your specific best practice is documented here, and it's called the withdrawal pattern. It's under common problems, and here's the best practice. So let me paste this into Twitter. The withdrawal pattern, we recommend a method for sending funds, I shouldn't say it like that, after an effect. All these words are smart. The smart people wrote this stuff, so you got to parse this. Sending funds after an event is using the withdrawal pattern. The most intuitive way of sending Ether is a direct transfer. This is not recommended as it introduces a security risk. We're talking about denial of service and reentrancy. So those are 2 specific things. If you are allowing smart contracts, then you need to be concerned about both of these things, reentrancy and out of gas.
Only if the recipient is a smart contract.
Only if the recipient is a smart contract. And I've done NFT drops, and people are like, I don't want to allow smart contracts. And I'm like, okay, it's not going to really save it.
How do you know the recipient is a smart contract?
Easy. That's it. It might be, yeah. If that's true, then so if the message sender, the person who's sending the message, and this would be from calling, let's call it calling. Anybody who's sending a message to your smart contract, if they are directly calling your smart contract, and they are not called from, there's not a smart contract in between them, then the transaction origin will be the message sender. And that's why we're making a good team here, because this does impact artists. This is something people might care about, because artists sometimes care about fairness or having multiple people buy their tokens, or artists care about how is the token sold. And this is directly impacted by this decision.
I also want to take some time to give some shout-outs to my LATAM fans.
Please.
Who are down below. Aida, Soho, Adolfo, Steven. Gracias. Thank you for stopping by.
Okay, here's the line of code. So create market sale, and then let's find there's some bit of an address. So the owner is this. Sounds like we're going to be, where does money go? Money is price. Okay.
Also, quick question. Do those comments increase the gas cost?
Comments here? No, comments are free.
Okay, the compiler removes them for me.
Well, it can increase the gas cost of deploying the contract, which nobody cares about, but it does not increase the gas cost of running the contract. Okay, so there's a seller that's being set. Basis points, we're going to calculate how much of a fee. Then we're going to subtract out the fee to the marketplace, and then the seller. Allow for pool. So is this going to be using, so this is using Ether. This is not using a different type of token?
Yep.
Okay, so I actually have a library for you that you can use for this. Exactly. It's called withdrawable. Okay, and then we're transferring from the NFT. It's great. So that we're not using safe transfer from. I think too many people are using safe transfer from. So you're using transfer from, which is fine, not reentrant.
This is actually a question about this. So, this is like, what if that NFT contract doesn't actually have a safe transfer? Like, what if, because this specific code, like this code line of code, assumes that that contract we're calling has a transfer from, and it's not malicious. So, like, is that not a potential vulnerability?
Two parts. So, if it's an ERC 721 contract, then it has a safe transfer from. If it doesn't have a safe transfer from, it is not an ERC 721 contract. That is a required function. So the second question is, and so that's specified in the standard. Second question is, what is your surface area for a potentially malicious NFT contract? So the answer to that, that's a good question too. If your marketplace is allowing any type of contract, then it also allows malicious contracts, which means that anytime you call anything on any contract that you did not allow list intentionally, you are potentially calling a malicious function. So that means that you need to consider everything to be non-reentrant, or you need to be prepared for reentrancy, even if you're not calling safe transfer from. So, fabulous point. That includes functions that you think are super safe, like ownerOf. This is going to be a fun attack that I'll execute one day, where I use the ownerOf function of a malicious NFT implementation that actually is reentrant and steals tokens that don't belong to that contract at all. So that'll be a fun exploit. And then I would just need to make a market with myself, run the function, steal the money. That'll be super fun. And again, you're getting alpha on this call, so you're going to hear things here that I'm not going to release onto YouTube for a long time until I know that that's safe. This is for academic purposes only. This should not be executed for malicious purposes. But all the functions in the smart contract could be doing unexpected things, including seemingly benign functions such as ownerOf, balance of. These functions might have side effects.
No, so you're saying basically, like, the point you were making about how, like, someone can basically drain a marketplace by calling, you saying basically, like, there's like an exploit in there, like, you can just exploit a marketplace. Can you explain that part again?
Not too much, but a little bit. Assumptions are risks. So there's an assumption in a lot of smart contracts that ownerOf doesn't do anything malicious. And there's an assumption that ownerOf only returns the owner of a token. What I'm telling you is if that assumption is wrong, then security may be compromised in a lot of places. So this is a design thing that needs to be thought through when you're making a marketplace. A lot of people haven't thought about that, and so there's probably somewhere an exploit and a quick $100 million to be made off of that. Until I go and check all of them and make sure they're safe, I probably won't be publishing that.
That's actually such a good point. Like, there's probably so much like arbitrage opportunities in crypto that people just don't know about.
Arbitrage is a fun way of that is one way to call it.
Yeah, I mean, it's probably illegal or unethical, but I guess that's why we have white hat hackers, right? Like, they can basically like help the community by finding.
People that don't like money that like to work for free and find things. We call them white hat hackers.
There's like a $1 million bounty. I think you can like money want to do that.
Most of them don't have bounties. I mean, the bounties, I think, are a joke, even the $1 million ones.
That makes a lot of sense. And I also wanted to say thank you so much for doing this. Like, I tweeted before this that it's super cool, like, that the original author of, like, the ERC 721 contract is literally letting people, like, come and ask him questions just like during his free time. So thanks for creating this for all of us.
Yeah, man, I appreciate it. I mean, you're the builder, right? So we're doing this together. I have a vision, you have the execution, and so we're doing this together. So, I appreciate what you're doing too. All right. Again, we got one last question. Go ahead, Rito. What's good?
So I wanted your take on the difference between both counterparty and Doge Party NFTs versus something like Polygon. Do you think that Doge Party and counterparty NFTs are actually real NFTs, or tokens rather, and are they technically based on the blockchains that they scale over, that they're built on top of?
So officially, my definition of NFT is expansive. Disclaimer, I don't represent what everybody thinks.
When you made the analogy just now of a notary system in Britain and compared that to blockchain NFTs, I understood the underlying essence of that to be that there is a protocol in place which effectively tokenizes what was being notarized, or effectively tokenizes the asset or piece of information on the blockchain. It is the protocol tokenizing it that is key here. There is a lot of disagreement over what qualifies as an actual NFT on the blockchain. For example, on Dogecoin, a developer named Inevitable360 basically put an image hash inside the op return field, and it's been called an NFT by some, but there are a lot of developers who are claiming it's not an NFT, that it's basically similar to sending a message, a text message through Dogecoin, that he may have just found a way to send an image over Dogecoin, that what he sent was not effectively tokenized, that Dogecoin does not have a protocol to tokenize this asset. So what he did may not be considered an NFT without a protocol.
Yes, and we're saying protocol. Protocol is an expansive word too. Protocol, everything that we're talking about, NFTs and blockchains and protocols, this is a concept, right? So everything we're discussing has to be applicable with horses, blacksmith, and 16th century Britain, because they're the same thing.
Being a system of rules and regulations to track and identify a certain thing.
Right. And there's also,
it's to track ownership.
And there is always an element of trust. Your ownership of assets on a ledger is only as valid as your trust in the custodian who has physical control of the asset. So let's apply this to car titles. This is it. This is a little metaphysical, right? So when you own a car, what we're talking about is not the physical car. What we're talking about is the police not putting you in jail when they question whether or not you're the valid owner. That is the question. The question is not who physically is sitting in the car. That's irrelevant. The question is, who is the police going to allow to continue driving when they pull you over? And the answer is, whatever system the police allows. This is a cop-out answer, but if we trust the police to believe in the system, then the system is valid, because police are part of the system. If we live in a world where there's no police, then that definition doesn't apply. If we want to know who is the owner of a CryptoKitty, then the answer is whichever one shows up on the CryptoKitty website when you're logged in. So there's a inextricable connection between the CryptoKitty website and the pixels on the website and what's on the blockchain. And so really, there's a lot more agency in Axiom Zen or whatever they're called now than people, Dapper Labs, than people care to think. There's a lot more connection. Now, when we're using IPFS, the rules are a little bit different, but this is an important part of it. Now, counterparty. Specifically for counterparty, I'm involved in a lawsuit where somebody's specifically testing that question. And so the question is, does counterparty NFT, does a statement of an NFT posted to counterparty count as an NFT? So to just bring everyone up to speed, the counterparty just allows you to publish messages. There's not actually a lot going on. It's kind of like Bitcoin. Anybody can post messages to Bitcoin, but they're not enforced. So the Bitcoin itself doesn't enforce the messages, but the people reading Bitcoin could. The counterparty is the same thing, right? So you can publish messages to counterparty, and then if you read the messages in a certain way, they could represent a canonical ownership of the NFT or whatever the system rules are. but they're not enforced mechanically in the metal of counterparty, but they could be in the construct that you create with counterparty. But consistently with that and what I've said elsewhere, I do think they're NFTs, and I think a lot of things are NFTs. And I think that when people are buying NFTs, they're buying a lot more airy, flaky, ephemeral thing than they realize.
All right, so you do think they are NFTs, they're effectively tokens, even though it sounds like your definition of NFT technically transcends the mere function of what a token is in a blockchain. Even if there are different structures for NFTs, whether it's Ethereum with smart contracts or Cardano, I don't know if they're technically considered smart contracts of some sort, the functionality of how the unit of information or the template of information moves across the blockchain, that doesn't seem to be pertinent to your definition. It doesn't actually have to be a token for it to be an NFT. It's more about the ownership that is respected, whether or not it is technically a token with a clear-cut protocol.
I know exactly. You got it. You completely understand this.
Yeah, this question is from Adolfo, who is down below.
ERC 721, ERC 721A. ERC 721A, nice website. And this is an implementation of ERC 721. That means if you're using ERC 721A, you are also using ERC 721. So it's a subset, it's an implementation. Also means that if you're using ERC 721A, there's no different way to use it from the outside. So if you're using MetaMask or Etherscan, or you're writing your own smart contract that interfaces with one of these, it's the same. From the outside, it's the same. From the inside, it works a little differently. The way that it implements it results in a very specific fancy feature. If you're minting a bunch of NFTs consecutively at the same time, it's cheap. That's the feature. It happens to be this is an important feature. When people are minting NFTs, there's this thing called sticker shock, where they're like, oh yeah, I want to mint this at 0.1 Ether or 0.01 Ether or something like that. But then when they see the gas price is also 0.1, that's called sticker shock. But there's a trade-off. So the minting is cheaper, but the transferring is more expensive. So some of the features are more expensive, and it happens to be that the transfer is more expensive. And the transfer can actually get very expensive depending on how many tokens you have. So if you mint 20 tokens, if your goal is to mint 20 tokens and then transfer all of them, this will actually cost more. But if you're just going to mint them and you're not going to transfer them for some reason, then it's a lot cheaper. And this is really important psychologically and whatever, because when people are minting, also at the time when people are minting, the gas cost is higher. So, that's, you want to spend less gas at that point. So it's an important implementation. People are using it. People are talking about it. You definitely want to have it on your radar. And there's a trade-off here. You have to understand the trade-off. I'll just tell you the secret if you're interested. If you're going to buy ERC 721A projects, there's a bunch of them. If you're going to mint one of these, just do know that if you mint a bunch of them, more than 10, there's a hack for transferring them. If you're on OpenSea or whatever, and you're buying a bunch of ERC 721As that were minted together, but you want to buy a bunch of them, then you want to buy them in a certain order. If you buy them in a different or transfer them in a different order, it costs more. But if you buy them in this specific order, you will save a lot of gas. You want to transfer the odd ones first in ascending order. So if you buy 10 of them, if you buy tokens 10, 11, 12, 13, 14, 15, 16, 17, 18, 19, 20, then you want to sell them in this order. 10, 12, 14, 16, 18, 20, and then the odd ones, whatever. Actually, it doesn't matter if it's even or odd. Evens or odds, you do whichever of them first. Basically, you're skipping one each time. If you do it in that order, you will minimize your gas cost.
That's so interesting. How the heck did you find that out?
Well, I knew there's a trade-off. So I knew that there's going to be, a pattern. And so I just tried some different patterns. There's a better pattern than this. There's a slightly better one than just evens than odds. But I figured this one fits in the tweet and people will remember it. So I just tweeted this one. You don't have to save an extra 1-2% after this. But if you do this, you will save a good amount. So you definitely want to know the even odd pattern. But yeah, I've read this source code. I read it line by line. That is not an audit. And I did give some feedback. And I have some commits into ERC 721A myself. And so I want to read it and make sure that people understand these things. For me, the biggest thing is if you're going to have an ERC 721A, you should either link to this tweet or you should put something like this on your homepage and explain this to people. because you're making a trade-off. You're giving them a lower mint cost, but they're going to have a higher transfer cost. They care about this or they don't care about this. This is something, but either way, you want to inform people about this stuff. Just like counterparty. Is this NFT? Is this not? Whatever it is, just be upfront about it.